Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation from renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about animation, the Annies, and 2022 in the year of animated films. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And this is our final word on 2022 in animation. We're going to start with talking about the 50th Annie Awards because this is kind of a big deal. Cameron, anything immediately stand out to you from this year's Annies?
Disney got shut out. They might have gotten nominated a bunch, but they won barely anything. Just mostly technical awards. And most of those were not from their animated films, but from live action with Avatar. And one win for Bob's Burgers, which is from their 20th television branch. So yeah, I think Disney fumbled the ball this year because the major winners were Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio for Best Animated Feature. I mean, we all saw that coming. No surprise, it's a really stacked list of nominees with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, Turning Red, and Wendell and Wild. Finally, an award show that didn't forget that Wendell and Wild came out. A24 ran away with Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. I'm a little disappointed in that, only because I wanted some award show to give the win to Inuo, because Science Saru, Masaki Iwasa, and G Kids put out pretty much one of the best movies of the year. Granted, they also had some other tough competition with Little Nicholas, Happy as Can Be, which I just rewatched recently, and golly, was that good. My Father's Dragon, and I just don't think Charlotte had any chance. And I like that movie fine, but I'm not shocked that Marcel won. I just wish Inuo won.
On my personal list, Inuo was, for the longest time, sitting right there at number one for the year overall. But at the same time, I kind of get that A24 was putting a lot of heat on Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and there's a big fan base towards that little guy.
I mean, I get it. I'm not going to say I hated the movie. I really liked it. Just something about this movie's hype did not gel with me. Not that it's like, oh, it was insincere or artificial. No. There's a reason why anyone who has watched this movie pretty much fell in love with it. It's a great movie. It just felt to me like it hit the festival circuits, got a lot of acclaim, got released in theaters, and it just felt quiet. And then all of a sudden, it just bubbles up at the top to try to compete with Del Toro's Pinocchio. And I don't know, it was just an interesting observation. And then I think everyone was just surprised that The Sea Beast came to compete when, granted, it was the most watched film on Netflix last year. But, just how Netflix is with its content. It focuses on a few things and then shoves everything else aside, which is what happened with a lot of their award season films this year. They saw that Blonde and Bardo were not doing well, so they were like, put all the effort and marketing into All Quiet on the Western Front. And they were going to do that with Pinocchio. It's Del Toro. They were going to put all their love behind that. But I was just happy to see The Sea Beast and Wendell and Wild say, hey, we also exist.
Yeah, same. The Sea Beast is one of those movies I really liked. While it didn't stay at the top of my list, I'm just glad that other people have taken a liking to it enough that it did become Netflix's one of their most watched films that year, which is really impressive.
Everything else was just kind of fine. I guess I was a little shocked to see Abominable and the Invisible City. win Best Animated Television Broadcast Production for Children. I was thinking like The Owl House was going to win, but I guess that means we'll need to find time to watch Abominable and the Invisible City.
I guess so.
We had nothing against it. It was just like there's just so much to talk about, and it got swallowed up, and I forgot that it came out. So, and I'm fine with Bob's Burgers winning, but I wish Tuca and Birdie won only because I wanted some justice for the show that got canceled because of HBO Max and Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, it's a shame what happened to them. Since you're the only one out of the two of us who's seen it, how do you feel about Oni Thunder God's Tale winning Best Animated Limited Series?
I agree with it. It's just a great little limited series. We'll have to talk about it at some point in some way, shape, or form. And it was really good. Just one of those special Netflix limited series that was really good. Sad that we are probably never going to see something like that from Netflix again. Netflix is just kind of all over the place right now. And I have yet to see The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. But if you watch that trailer, it's like, wow. It's like those old, like the Snowman shorts and such, where it was just like there's this ethereal beauty of it.
I didn't realize Bad Robot was behind that one.
Yeah, that was really interesting to find out. I'm a little sad that Intergalactic got no real love just because I thought that was a really cool experience film. And yeah, I'm fine with the Love, Death, and Robot wins, even though I have a big issue with the one that won being one of the few shorts that's all about like, hey, look at this NFT thing that we're launching alongside it. It's just like,
Oh, right. I forgot that was the one.
It was that and the Three Robots shorts that had the quick little like NFT, even though NFTs are now looked at as like the most worthless thing, even though people are still trying to make AI art a thing. Like, come on, y'all. Just no. AI art takes the art out of it. So it's not good. But that's all I really have to say. I think the Annies were pretty solid.
Kind of the same. I'm happy for those that won. I'm sad that because I was out of town this weekend, I missed the actual ceremony, but I'm just very excited for those who got to celebrate like all of these achievements in film in 2022. And that kind of leads into our main topic for today. This is kind of our final word on 2022. So overall, would you say it was a good year?
It was a good year overall in animation. Not great for the industry because of how Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery basically like set the whole animation industry on fire and try to say like, hey, animation doesn't matter because we got to save everything else, the stuff that will sell. But nobody watches animation, even though they now have 2 animated films nominated for Oscars. It's like, wow, you couldn't be like a bigger failure if you tried. And I mean, I get it. They hit a wall of subscribers. They didn't make all the money in the world, which these freaking companies need to start realizing that continual growth is just not possible. It's frustrating because there were some really good movies put out this year that all got either overshadowed or undercut by the fact that the big studios and companies were trying to like demolish the animation industry, like cutting so many projects, laying off so many people. It was a real rough time. And it seems like every studio or company just couldn't quite stay out of the spotlight in terms of bad press. Because if it wasn't Netflix canceling everything, it was Disney's helping out the Don't Say Gay bill. It was the Warner Brothers Discovery merger that just killed so many projects and shows because mergers don't actually help creativity. They kill it. And then it was just like, it sucked to sit there and watch all of this happen, but also see so much great art come from it that it was real whiplash.
The dissonance between how great some of these projects were, especially from Netflix, compare that to just how unfortunate everything turned out to be for a lot of these big corporations. Whiplash is like kind of the perfect description for this year as a whole. But fortunately, our grading system only reflects their actual input and not so much the studio politics, because if we incorporated that into the mix, companies like Netflix and Disney would probably be F minus.
They would get like a G. Like invent a new failure letter that's just like, the G does not stand for good. It stands for good gravy. Y'all failed. And no, this isn't like, we're not cutting out the politics. Some of the grading here is based on it, but it's not entirely. This is just the films and the art that was released by these studios. Like Netflix probably had their best lineup of all time for theatrical animation, but everything else was just like, yeesh. And what's even sadder is we'll probably never see something quite as excellent as this lineup. It was like a slow burn starting from Klaus to 2020 with like some of their films there, to 2021 to 2022, which just had like, we had a Del Toro film, a cool CGI music collaboration, a new Henry Selick movie, a Chris Williams film that took the world by storm, a new Cartoon Saloon movie, a new Richard Linklater, a stop motion horror anthology. Stop motion had quite a killer year.
Oh, absolutely.
It just so happens that we had like a multitude of different stop motion projects hit, because like in total between Mike and I, we saw about 58 movies. And those include, and not in any release order, Del Toro's Pinocchio, Inuo, Little Nicholas, which we'll talk about next time, Wendell and Wild, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Intergalactic, Goodbye Don Glees, The Sea Beast, Turning Red, My Father's Dragon, New Gods Yang Jian, Drifting Home, Strange World, The Deer King, The Bad Guys, Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, The Bob's Burgers Movie, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, Rise of the TMNT, the movie, Dragon Ball Super Superheroes, Apollo 10.5, The House, Sing a Bit of Harmony, Bubble, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, Lightyear, One Piece Film Red, The House of the Lost on the Cape, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Pompo the Cinephile, Scrooge: A Christmas Carol, Catwoman Hunted, Child of Kamiari Month, Odd Taxi in the Woods, Oink, DC Leagues of Super Pets, Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons, Green Lantern Beware My Power, Luck, Minions The Rise of Gru, Paws of Fury The Legend of Hank, Chicken Hare and the Hamster of Darkness, Mad God, Charlotte, Fireheart, The Seven Deadly Sins, Grudge of Edinburgh Part 1, Mortal Kombat Legends, Snowblind, Lamia's Poem, Night at the Museum, Kamuraz Rises Again, Ryoma, The Prince of Tennis, Hotel Transylvania, Transformania, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, Riverdance, The Animated Adventure, The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, Pinocchio, A True Story, the soccer football movie, and Marmaduke. It always feels like we're not going to get a lot, and then we find a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to the grading system. Disney, I think, had an off year, which is why this is one of those years and opportunities where every other studio needs to take advantage of. Like, I think the people who are working at the company are super talented. The talent and the passion that were put into Disney's films this year was not the problem. It was like everything else. They quickly put Pixar's Turning Red onto Disney Plus without giving it a proper theatrical release, which was a real bummer. They put Lightyear in the theaters, and unfortunately, no one showed up for it. Granted, I know a lot of people are taking the out of context quote from Pete Docter about Lightyear like really harsh. Don't. In general, he's saying people want Toy Story. They don't want Toy Story adjacent stuff. If you're going to give people Toy Story, it has to be Toy Story, which is why we're getting a Toy Story 5. And then just poor Strange World. All the animation fans who are all like, I grew up with Atlantis and Treasure Planet, y'all didn't show up. And the marketing was not fully the problem. So it's like, I don't know what exactly happened, but it's sad that yet another sci-fi adventure film from Disney that's not based off of Star Wars or Marvel got swept under the rug when it was just a really solid sci-fi adventure film. I think their release strategies did not help them this year.
Oh no, definitely not. I don't think the previous Bob really understood Disney's legacy because animation built the House of Mouse. Fortunately, I think the new old Bob will do what he can to correct the mistakes of this year.
Well, they're already saying they're going to release their films in longer stays within the theater. Granted, I'm not happy with Iger right now because of the whole like, here's Toy Story 5 and Frozen 3 and Zootopia 2. Be distracted by this when you don't hear us lay off hundreds of people again. Oh my God. It's like other Bob must have just put Disney in the red. So that sucks that the employees had to suffer and not the higher ups. DreamWorks, on the other hand, had a stellar year. People showed up for the bad guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And they made 2 movies that were better than what Disney was putting out that year. I mean, I still think Turning Red is better than a lot of their films that they've put out recently, but just on a consistent quality level, the bad guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish made the studio like an A+ player in 2022.
Agreed. I think Turning Red is better than the bad guys, but I still really love a lot of that movie. And then Puss in Boots would have been my number one if it wasn't for Pinocchio. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Illumination didn't do much this year. They were going to have 2 movies in 2022, but then they just delayed Mario for April of 2023. So all they had was the Minions: The Rise of Gru. And I'm just getting a little tired. Like, I'm now at that point of Illumination's writing has been their biggest weakness because their animation's fine. Their physical comedy is fine. The voice cast, while obviously overpaying people like Steve Carell to voice a character in the movie, it's just the writing, their storytelling. I need them to start getting better at that. And it almost makes up for the fact that they are about to open up a studio to make like teenage and adult focused animated fare. So I'm hoping that works out for them. But I think in general for their films, I think a C, just because The Rise of Gru is just fine.
When you compare what Illumination had to everyone else, a C is more than fair. I may have a higher opinion of Illumination than other people, but I am just one individual.
Yeah, same. WB had a rough year. Like, Don't Worry, Darling tanked. Black Adam didn't change the DC universe. And the DC League of Super Pets came and went like that. Like, no one cared about that movie. Probably had the most cynical and distracting case of celebrity stunt casting. And the movie itself just was fine. Nobody really talks about it, even though there are some great moments like Natasha Lyonne's playing the turtle and all the actual bleeped out swearing that was then outdone by Puss in Boots' Last Wish. Their best thing was a direct to video Scooby Doo movie. And that's just kind of sad, even though I really liked Trick or Treat Scooby Doo.
It's a great movie for what it is, but I have a lot of not nice things to say about Zaslav. For better or for worse, the Super Pets movie came out pretty much the month before everything just turned to shit for Warner Discovery.
Exactly. And for these other companies like Paramount, they only picked up the rights to Paws of Fury, so you can't blame them for making the movie. It was fine. It wasn't the big disaster piece that I think everyone was expecting because of how it went through production hell, like one of those legendary production hell cycles. But it had like a few decent jokes that I liked. So it's not like the biggest failure of the year. There was just no way that it was going to be as good as people. They weren't thinking it was going to be great. And when it came out, it was just like, yep, we were right. Shame though, because some of those jokes were great.
They were.
Then with Apple Plus, their first foray into feature animation, and it fumbles right out of the gate. And just with conflicting reports about how much it actually cost, the production woes of like, you know, who got put in and then the original director got kicked out. And Luck just wasn't that great of a movie. I know we avoided talking about it, but there's really not much to talk about. It's a movie with a magical premise that lacks magic. And I'm hoping for the best for their film this year, but I'm curious to see what happens next. Like if they actually improve or if it's just going to be another kind of dead on arrival film. Because Apple Plus kind of set themselves up for disappointment because it's like, we're going to launch with Wolfwalkers, the cartoon saloon movie, the best movie from 2020. It's kind of hard to top that, but they do have that short that won an Annie, so
I still have to watch that short. I've heard good things about it. As for the other stuff, I think it's just name association that may make or break Skydance's future.
Among the foreign animation distributors, I think G Kids obviously did the best. They had the best movies like Inu-Oh, Goodbye Don Glees, New Gods Yang Jian, The Deer King, and Pompo the Cinephile. They definitely like lightened their load a little this year. It seems like they're slowly having to like get back to full strength, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
I wish they would stop focusing on just Japanese animation, especially since so far the one non-Japanese animated thing to have coming out is Unicorn Wars, and boy, that film's going to split the entire film world down the middle. Because then otherwise they have the stage play for Spirited Away, and then that Miyazaki documentary that came out a while back. Which I'm excited about checking those out. I'm going to buy them. I love that kind of stuff. But I was hoping they'd pick up stuff like Little Nicholas or Tatina, or that Japanese film that came out during Animation is Film, and nobody has yet to pick it up for some reason. And for Crunchyroll, they put out mostly franchise fodder with Jujutsu Kaisen Zero and Dragon Ball Super Superhero. And they had like one original movie with Sing a Bit of Harmony, which I still found very charming. And it comes out on Blu-ray in March. And then like with One Piece Film Red, like they put out some good stuff. But I'm waiting for them to start picking up and distributing original movies.
Let's see how Suzume performs this year. That might dictate their future when it comes to original acquisitions.
I agree with that. Because like I love certain anime franchise films, and the ones that they've put out this year have been kind of middling, only because it's like it's not because Sword Art Online and that time I got reincarnated as a slime were bad franchises. It's just that they're coming out after Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, which was like the best film of like Crunchyroll's lineup.
Yeah.
And then like 11 Arts did fine. They put out a few solid films. Their best one being The House of the Lost on the Cape. They were fine. A24, well, they got lucky. They only had to put out one animated film, which was Marcel. It's an A. Like, it's a great movie. It took the animation world by storm. What else could you ask for their like first animated feature?
It's a great first step.
And unfortunately for Sony, they just had one movie last year, which was Hotel Transylvania Transformania. And nobody talks about it. It's like it happened. People said like, whatever, and then just left.
I, honest to God, forgot that I saw it last year.
It was just like, make this so we can make other stuff. And that's not a good mindset to have with producing animated films, which is kind of like how Netflix works. Like, they'll fund a ton of interesting and compelling animated films, but also put out the soccer football movie and Marmaduke, which nobody cared about. I couldn't find footage or interviews or anything about the soccer football movie. That's dire. Who at Netflix saying, yes, give Del Toro and Henry Selick a movie, but we got like $3. So what else can we buy? And then it was just like everything else. The studios did fine. A little more inconsistent than other years, but hoping for the best for this coming year. The fact that most major animated films are starting their release in April, I don't know. It's interesting to see that. Because otherwise it's just going to be all these smaller films coming out. But I guess it should be time for the Renegade Animation Award show. And we've slimmed down the awards this year just to like keep it low key and just to have more time to chat about the overall year of 2022. But I guess we should start with what are our most anticipated films and TV shows for the year. Mike, what are yours?
Okay, so my number one most anticipated film is, and has been for a while, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Runners up probably are Disney's Wish, because I'm just really curious to see how Disney Animation celebrates their 100th anniversary. This is a big deal that, while I understand there's a lot of cynicism towards Disney, like, that's still a huge milestone. So there's that. There's also Hayao Miyazaki's How Do You Live? Another film that we haven't really seen much footage of, but I'm just very curious to see what Miyazaki does for his alleged final film.
Now, for TV, it's hard to know what TV shows are coming out. And honestly, my most anticipated already came out with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and it's just so good.
Yeah, that's the reason why I was struggling, because that was my most anticipated series for, 2019 was 4 years ago. I had to just like throw a dart, assuming that this show is even going to premiere this year, and that X-Men 97, which is the kind of sort of revival of the old X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. TV is kind of harder to anticipate because most of the shows that fall into our lap are they're almost surprises. Like, unless it's like something from Disney Animation, we won't find out until like at most a month in advance.
It's hard to know like what I'm most looking forward to, because yeah, I am looking forward to Across the Spider-Verse and Wish. I am cautiously looking forward to the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see something about Wildwood before I get excited for it. I guess I would say Nimona is my most anticipated film, even though I'm also looking forward to Suzume, but that's Shinkai. It's going to be good. And yeah, I guess it would be How Do You Live, like a tie between that and Nimona, because we should be getting those somewhat soon. I would love to say Deep Sea or Sandland are my most anticipated, but we don't know if those are coming out in the US anytime soon.
Yeah, good point.
Now for biggest surprise for TV. TV was kind of thin last year, like not counting the anime section. It was like not as bountiful as 2021, which had, like City of Ghosts, Kid Cosmic, Centaur World, and so on. I think mine was just The Legend of Vox Machina. I think that was the one I was the most surprised by, because at that point I didn't watch that stuff. I wasn't into D&D. I was still kind of eye rolling that Amazon has made their entire adult animation and just overall identity being like hyper violence. And then here's a show that got me back into D&D and Pathfinder, where I'm now playing weekly games with my friend. And then there was also like that Bee and Puppy Cat show, which I thought was charming. And then like there were so many good anime that surprised me. Mike, what was your biggest surprise for TV?
The one that really caught me off guard was Kotaro Lives Alone. That, what was it, 10 episode anime
Yeah,
miniseries from like the beginning of last year.
right.
I had no idea what to expect from the show. And then like I watched the whole series and just kind of fell in love with the main character, the supporting cast, just the whole story behind it. I have to assume this was kind of a big hit because I posted my quick thoughts on Facebook, and then I came back to that post like 2 months later. It was still getting attention. So that just proves there is an audience out there for shows like this.
Right on. Now, for biggest surprise in film, that's tough because I feel like I'm always going to like what I like. Like, if I think a film looks good, I'm probably going to like it. But there was like a lot to choose from. The Sea Beast with its grand scale, and like how it was basically How to Train Your Dragon, but with pirates and sea monsters. The Bad Guys with DreamWorks saying, hey, we are actually going to go the route of stylish CGI like Sony did and put out a really fun action heist film. The emotional core of Little Nicholas was amazing to me, of just how it combined the story of the creators of the comic with stories from said comic. I knew I was going to like Wendell and Wild because it's Henry Selick. I don't care it has flaws. I loved it. But if I had to go with the biggest surprise, I would say it is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a sequel that came out a decade plus later, based on a franchise people have pretty much not cared about outside of memes. And then
Yeah,
here comes Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, right in the last month, to have this great story about morality and have positive representation of panic attacks, and our character dealing with this like found family situation while dealing with his own personal hangups with the character of Death. I think that's it for me. That was my biggest surprise of last year.
I think for me, when it comes to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it's not so much a surprise that it was going to be good. It was just a surprise of like how good it was going to be and how popular that ended up being, like, despite coming out at the very end of 2022. But my biggest surprise was the Sea Beast. Not because I didn't think I was going to like it. I just wasn't aware of this movie until Netflix really started to actually advertise this one. The more I kind of learned about it, learned about, the behind the scenes, and then actually watching the movie, this one actually turned out to be really good. Kind of like How to Train Your Dragon meets Master and Commander. It's a combination you wouldn't think would work, but nope, turns out to be quite successful. And I really can't wait for the sequel to come out whenever we get it.
I'll be patiently waiting to see how they handle the sequel. Now, for best anime, this is our new one for the year because we all watch like a ton of anime, and that's either the weekly releases or the Netflix releases. And there was a lot of good stuff last year. I think if I had to be extremely basic with mine, it would be Spy X Family because I always look for anime that's good right from the get go. It doesn't take its time to slowly reveal its greatness, or it doesn't catch you off guard, like by the 3 episode rule point, like right at the start. That's why it's my favorite anime from last year.
It's a good pick. We watched a lot of great shows that we watched throughout our seasonal impressions, but for me, the show that left the biggest impression was Cyberpunk Edge Runners. And quick spoiler, that is also my best TV show of the year. It's just one of those shows that just everything going for it. Everything from the animation to just the story, the characters. It just kind of succeeded in everything that it set out to accomplish.
Well, spoiler alert for me, my best TV show choice was The Legend of Vox Machina season 1, with a runner-up going to be in Puppy Cat and the Cuphead show, and Dead End Paranormal Park. Everything I said about Vox Machina, I already said. It's like I rewatched Vox Machina maybe the most out of any other show last year because I was getting back into Pathfinders and Dungeons and Dragons and such. And it just was a really good story, and it didn't fall under the pressure of being constant fan service for the people who watch those extremely long episodes of Critical Role. It was a good stand on its own fantasy action adventure show, which the second season just improved upon everything, but we'll get to that in the future.
My 2 runner-ups were Dead End Paranormal Park and Legend of Vox Machina. As of this recording, I haven't finished season 2 of Vox Machina yet, but man, I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah. We'll be talking about it with alongside My Dad the Bounty Hunter in a future episode. Another thing that happened last year was we got a lot of really good movies based off of TV shows. And so I made a best film based on a TV show award. And it's tough. We had like the Bob's Burgers movie, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, Rise of the TMNT the movie, the Shonen franchise films, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. It was tough to pick out just one movie. But if there was one of those movies that I continued to watch more so than any others, my choice is the Bob's Burgers movie.
That's a good choice.
A lot of these have like the biggest hurdle to get over. Like, can you make a 30-minute show work as a feature film? And it all does come down to the source material and the writing. And the Bob's Burgers movie was so charming, really funny. The surprise musical moments were great, with Some Lucky Ducks being the song I listened to ad nauseum for a few months. And my runner-ups would be Rise of the TMNT, the movie, and Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. They're like on the same level, but Rise of the TMNT requires you to watch the show to be as emotionally connected as you are with everything else. Beavis and Butthead, the universe was just more Beavis and Butthead, even though there's nothing wrong with that. What is your choice, Mike?
Because I couldn't choose one, I have a podium. At the top is the Bob's Burgers movie, just because I think the secret to that movie's success is they just kind of leaned in on everything that was great about the series while giving us a plot that's like has just the right amount of stakes to justify the 90-minute runtime. And then in second and third place are Rise of the TMNT movie, because Flying Bark Productions is just incredible at everything that they do. And granted, this is especially for people who are fans of the series. This is just kind of the perfect send-off for fans. And it's just a great Kang story. And then, of course, my third pick is very nostalgic for me, but I had to go with Dragon Ball Super Superhero. And unlike previous Dragon Ball films, you can go into this one with a clean slate because they give you all of the important information in like the first 5 minutes. But if you are a fan of the series, and if you're really a fan of Piccolo and Gohan, then this is the movie for you.
I'm still not going to get over the fact that Vegeta finally beat Goku and nobody was there to watch. That was like the best punchline you can end a movie on for something related to Dragon Ball. Something happened last year. We also got a lot of horror animation. So we're going to just do some quick genre categories. Up first with the best horror animated film. I think I'm going to go with something that's more consistent because otherwise the house is just 100% dread, unease at every corner. But I think my choice will go to Henry Selick's Wendell and Wild. Just fun, incredibly dark and scary in a not jump scare, gore hound way. But just how it tackled its themes, even if it was too much for some people. It was just the one that stood with me. And it's also the one I've watched the most out of all the horror animation from this year. The runner-ups would definitely go to The House.
Agree with that 100%. Wendell Wild had captured that 80s family film aesthetic where it was pretty dark and they had mature themes, but it was still palatable enough for families. Plus, the vocal performances from Key and Peele are just like delightfully silly, but still are emotionally grounded when they need to be. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And The House. I've said for a while, we need more horror animated projects. And since this was one of the first ones out of the gate, it succeeded at capturing that like dread in each of these segments.
Right. Then we have best comedy. And now this one's kind of varied because you can say like, oh, some of the jokes in the drama-driven films were funnier than the straight-up comedies. But if I had to choose like the purest form of like the best written comedy, it's a tie between Little Nicholas, Happy as Can Be, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Because Little Nicholas brings like a wondrous childlike energy to its comedy with well-written jokes and just outstanding physical humor. With Puss in Boots, it's just funny in how widespread the jokes were. You had physical jokes, you had extremely dark jokes, well-written dialogue jokes. It hit all the like numbers. The award is tied for those two.
For me, when it comes to comedy, I'm picking like the purest comedy of the bunch, and nothing made me laugh harder than the college lecture scene from Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe.
That was really funny.
Like that still goes down as like one of the funniest things I've seen all year. That's not to say that Do the Universe is a better film than Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but I was just personally judging on the most pure comedy out of the bunch.
Agreed. No, that would have been my runner-up. And Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo just had like a new life in its comedy this year that made me laugh so hard when we talked about it. And Dragon Ball Super Superhero showed that it also had good dialogue comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob's Burgers, the movie was really funny. But it was also just more Bob's Burgers. Like they just did their humor extremely well. Now for the best drama, we had quite a few to choose from. Like we had Pinocchio and Yu-Oh, The Sea Beast. I would say Turning Red is a drama. We had Intergalactic, and we had like New Gods Yang Jian and Strange World, Deer King. But I think I'm going to have to give it to Pinocchio. Del Toro is going to win a lot of these awards, so no shock. Just the whole drama between the morality of Pinocchio and the disconnect between father and son dynamics. It's something I love to see with animation that tackle much heavier subjects that you don't normally see. Del Toro said animation is film, so it's not just for kids, it can be for adults.
I'll say this. If Pinocchio did not come out last year, then Inuo would have been a shoo-in for best drama. Even though there's a lot more going on in that movie, the dramatic scenes were as compelling as like the musical sequences. I guess there are some comedic beats in there too. Inuo just had a lot of things to love.
And now for something you might like, best musical, because we actually had not as many musicals as we would have seen in other years, but there are still a few animated films that came out that were all music based, like Inuo, Intergalactic, Sing a Bit of Harmony, One Piece film Red. We got more than what we normally do, and it wasn't just all Disney. Like, Disney did not put out a musical last year. As much as Pinocchio's music grew on me, this win's going to go to Inuo. Biggest bangers right out the gate. And you didn't need to think about the songs like you do with Del Toro's Pinocchio.
I'll agree with that because the songs in Pinocchio, while I enjoyed them, they're not the feature. They're more like the cherry. Inuo, I kind of knew going in that it was going to be a musical, and those songs are just more well put together in the context of the film. Whereas, again, I love the music in Pinocchio, but it does kind of feel a bit more improvised, if that makes any sense.
Right. It's like they needed a musical moment here. What's something they could think up? Even though Ciao Papa is still a heartbreaking tune. But it just doesn't beat something like The Whale from Inuo, which is still my choice for the best musical sequence of any movie from last year. Now for the best action film, because we actually got some action films. Big shock. And you could go in a bunch of different directions with this one. There was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, New Gods Yang Jian, Strange World, The Deer King, The Bad Guys, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Rise of the TMNT, the movie, and Dragon Ball Super Superheroes. What would you choose?
This is tough because action last year, we got a lot of good stuff. But I think it's more than fair to award this movie to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Not only do I think that's just the best movie of the bunch, but that it also has some really standout action scenes, just kind of elevates it on like another level.
Yeah, that's my choice also. Just very dynamic action set pieces that also help tell the story and such. My runner-up would be New Gods Yang Jian and The Sea Beast, but The Sea Beast isn't really an action film.
It's more like an adventure film.
Right. And now we can actually do something about the, like with stop motion, because we have 2 stop motion categories this year. We have, first up, the best stop motion animation. This is just awarding the best looking animation, not the quality of the movie itself. I mean, story-wise, I mean. Yeah, it's a toss-up. I think I'd go with Pinocchio, but Wendell and Wild is... I'll give it both to the 2 of them.
I think that's more than fair because Wendell and Wild was Henry Selick's first feature film in, well, frankly, too long. This was just one hell of a triumphant return.
It's just like both of them had visually stunning movies, and that the unique aspect of these stop motion films this year is that they were all different. Mm-hmm. You could not compare and contrast each of the films there in question. You cannot say The House looks like Mad God and Wendell and Wild looks like Pinocchio. Each of these films had a distinct visual style.
Even Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is very minimalist in its use of stop motion, but that still is a distinct style apart from everything else.
Right. Now we have the best CGI animation, which, again, just in general of what film had the best looking CGI. And this could go multiple directions. You have the realism, you have the more stylized look, you have the traditional Pixar and Disney look, or you go with something like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which, yes, it might be taking notes from Into the Spider-Verse, but at this point, who cares if it does or not? It had a beautiful look to the usual DreamWorks fare, and its visual creativity was just breathtaking to see on the big screen at Animationist Film and on like when I went to see it in a normal theater. The runner-up would definitely go to the Sea Beast, because if Netflix wants to compete with theatrical animation, it has to put out films that look just as big and as great as the Sea Beast. And that means they have to give Animal Logic, the studio that worked on it, the time and the money to do so. But what is your choice for best CGI animation?
I kind of flip-flopped in a couple different directions before ultimately going with Puss in Boots. At one point, I considered Intergalactic an option, just because even though that's not technically a film, Netflix calls it a TV special. That's still some high-level theatrical animation. It's probably not as good as Puss in Boots in terms of, capturing that Spider-Verse aesthetic. But for what they were trying to accomplish, they still did a good job. I agree, though. My runner-up is definitely the Sea Beast. If you're looking for a little bit of that realism in terms of human designs, but also just really creative creature designs, that movie had a lot to work with. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to the sequel. And I hope they give us the sequel a theatrical release, just like Del Toro's Pinocchio.
Like Netflix, you got to do that. You got to, and not just in New York and California. You got to give it a full-on theatrical release. You saw what happened with Glass Onion. You can make money. Don't be allergic to it. Now, for the best 2D animation, there's, again, multiple ways to go. You have Inu-Oh. You have like Little Nicholas, My Father's Dragon, Drifting Home, The Deer King, Jujutsu Kaisen, Apollo 10.5. Bubble was a visual wonder early on in the year. But yeah, Inu-Oh has the best 2D animation. It's just a visual treat that you can't compare or contrast to any other movies that have been released in 2022.
I have to agree. My only other runner-up would have been like the Rise of the TMNT movie, because, again, Flying Bark does not know how to deliver anything less than excellent.
And now for the best stop motion film. Now, this is about like overall quality. And gee, I wonder if it starts with Pinocchio. Yeah, I think Pinocchio is just a better movie in general, even though I love Wendell in the Wild. I was not a big fan of Mad Gods, but I just think Pinocchio was just splendid from start to finish as a movie.
I agree. And again, not to get on my soapbox for the 100th time, but Netflix, put more of your animated stuff in theaters, or just everything in theaters. I know how you watch a film shouldn't really dictate how much you love a movie, but yeah, seeing Pinocchio on the big screen for my first viewing, it helped it get from, oh yeah, this is great, to this is my number one movie of the year.
And now for the best foreign/indie animated film. It's going to be labeled indie because that's what the Annies do, which, I don't know. I don't know why they said Marcel was indie, even though it was like a US-based production. But, I digress. It's going to go to Inu-Oh because Inu-Oh deserves all the love in the world. It just had a great story, great music, vibrant animation. It was quirky. It was serious. It was dark. It was tear-jerking. I wish they had a better theatrical release for this, because I was ready to go and it was just in no theaters near me.
I'm surprised how little support G-Kids gave this movie, especially after Belle brought in $3 million at the US box office. You'd think that movie's success would have emboldened them to take more chances, to give these movies a wider push, but unfortunately that's not the case. But that doesn't mean I love Inuo any less. It just makes me sad that I can't share that love with more people.
Right. My runner-up would have gone to My Father's Dragon and Little Nicholas. There are just a few things that Inuo did better as an overall movie, even though I still gave all three a like 5 out of 5 rating. It's just the rating at the end of the day is subjective. It's just how you felt overall about the movie.
Agreed.
And now for our last award, the best US made animated film. It's Pinocchio.
I mean, what else would it have been at this point?
I mean, I love Turning Red. I loved The Sea Beast. I loved Wendell Wild and Puss in Boots, Intergalactic. But it's Pinocchio. Just, it shows you why Del Toro is such a good director and how to tell a story in a medium that so many studios do not want to take seriously for some reason. It's just so good. It captures why animation is so great.
Not only that, as I said in our initial review, this just reflects how great storytelling is and just how much it's a reflection of how much the filmmaker just adores the medium of film. And one of the reasons why I love Guillermo del Toro as not just a filmmaker, but as like a true champion of film is that he understands exactly the amount of passion for storytelling, and to inject that into animation gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah, no, we'll have to see how Netflix handles distribution more and what kind of projects we can see from this year. I mean, I know what we're getting for the most part, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that is it for our award show and just look back at 2022 as a whole. Next time, we're going to be talking about the New York Children's International Film Festival because we got screeners to talk about a bunch of the films that are playing there.
Definitely looking forward to the selection that we'll be discussing. But until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. It's the same for Hive. I also have a website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Hive at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser, on the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.